From a haunted house to buying a ghost, we're talking the best ghost stories. Please join the conversation. Hey everybody, welcome to D3 Reads. I'm Eric, thanks so much for joining. So 4th of July is gone, summer is over halfway over, and so you know what that means, Halloween. This next big festive holiday coming up, and in preparation I started looking at my TBR because there's certain books I know that I want to make sure I get to before Spooktober starts because I want to review them before the big holiday. And as I did that, I realized that I've read a lot of pretty good ghost stories over the last couple of years. And so I thought I would share some of that with you. We've talked a lot about horror over the past year or so. We've talked about some of the best horror authors. We've also talked about some of the best subgenres like cosmic horror, gothic horror, vampires, but we've never talked about the classic ghost story. So I want to go over with you 5 of my favorite ghost stories. Actually, I'm cheating a little bit because I got a couple extra packed in there, but it's by the same authors. So as we dive into it, what makes a good ghost story? I'd be interested in your opinions on this, but for me, there's at least 3 things. First, it has to have a ghost. I know that sounds a little bit silly, but think of it in terms of something like Psycho, where it seems like there's some kind of supernatural presence out there, but really it's all inside the head of the main villain or maybe the main character. So that turns it from a ghost story into a psychological horror, which is fine. Could be, I mean, that's a perfectly entertaining kind of horror, but it's not a ghost story. So a ghost story, to me, has to be a legit ghost story, something supernatural that is affecting the natural world. Second, like all horror, there's got to be a huge element of mystery in there. You know, we're talking the paranormal that's intruding on the lives of the living, and so there's got to be a lot of mystery. I mean, the setup could be pretty well established. There's all sorts of tropes out there that sets up a good ghost story, from haunted houses to cursed items to graveyards, whatever. I mean, that's all fine for use, but there's got to be a certain mystery as to the how and the why of the haunting. To me, where a lot of ghost stories fall apart, or at least kind of don't hold up very well, is especially towards the end of a story where an author feels like they got to kind of tie things up in a neat little bow, and it winds up explaining too much. And so the story becomes a little bit more clinical and a little bit less mysterious. And to me, the element of mystery and the unknown is a huge part of a good ghost story. And finally, vulnerability. There has to be a certain kind of vulnerability for the protagonist in the story. I was just reading an article not too long ago talking about what makes a successful ghost story, and the author of that article, I'll try to find it and put it into the comments section, but the author said that basically a good ghost story is based in psychology, where the protagonist would have just suffered some kind of trauma, whether mental, physical, what have you, leaving them open to questioning what it is that he or she may be seeing. So you have, the horror of the ghostly apparition or intrusion into their lives, but they also have to deal. They're also dealing with something that has either happened or that's either recently happened or is happening that makes them question what it is they're seeing. So that element of vulnerability adds that creep factor into a good ghost story. With that, here are 5 of my favorite ghost stories. Number 5 is the oldest. It was written by Henry James and published in 1898, and it's The Turn of the Screw. Now, you may be familiar with the story. It's been adapted for movies a number of times over the years. Most recently, it was the source, the primary source from Michael Flanagan's The Haunting of Bly Manor. Now, I thought Bly Manor was a fantastic Netflix series. It was a great ghost story, but it's not a very faithful adaptation of The Turn of the Screw. They use a lot of the character names and a lot of the setting and that kind of thing, but it's not the same story. Now, this is clearly a gothic horror story as well. It takes place in an old English manor in the late 1800s. A governess is hired to take care of a couple of children. You see, the mom and dad had just passed away, and the uncle of these children, so the brother of the father, decided that he needed to take care of these kids. So he hires this governess and tells the governess, "You're to go out to Bly Manor and take care of my nephew and niece, but do not talk to me under any circumstances. You just take care of whatever you have to take care of, and everything will be great. So the governess takes this odd assignment and meets the children, a young boy named Miles and his younger sister named Flora. Now, Miles actually is away at a school, but he gets expelled for some mysterious reason. And so he comes home, and there's some mystery kind of that remains throughout the whole story, kind of unexplained about why he gets expelled. So the governess is trying to figure out what's going on, but she falls in love with the kids, absolutely adores them, and then starts seeing these apparitions. She starts seeing this mysterious man and later this mysterious woman, and it comes to pass that these are not living beings; these are ghosts. And so, not to give away too much of the story, the governess finds herself on a mission to protect these children from these ghosts who she thinks is coming after the children, because it turns out that the ghosts belong to people who used to the former governess who worked there before she did, as well as a groundskeeper. The story has got some really great attributes to it. I mean, first of all, being written so long ago, there's some truly creepy scenes in there. I remember there a couple of times where I was like, "Oh, no way!" I actually read part of this while I was on a camping trip, and so it really surprised me that some of the way that when the ghosts were able to be slipped into the narrative, kind of when I wasn't expecting it, and it's done very effectively. It is true that because this book was written so long ago, it's fairly densely written. And there are a couple of times when I had to go back and kind of reread some of the paragraphs just to make sure I knew what was going on. So it took me longer to read this novella than I would have expected. So don't let that dissuade you, though. The story is really good. It's a classic of the ghosts subgenre, and it's definitely a worthy ghost story to add to your library. So The Turn of the Screw, definitely worth your time. And if you haven't seen the Michael Flanagan's The Haunting of Bly Manor, that's worth your time too. But again, they're two completely different stories, and don't invest too much into the character development in the TV series versus what's in the books, because the characters are very much different. Next up, I have Algernon Blackwood's horror stories. Now, the specific book I'm talking about is Algernon Blackwood Horror Stories. It's an anthology that I found at, I think, a Barnes & Noble or Books A Million, maybe. But there's any number of collections of Algernon Blackwood's works. He is best known for the Willows and the Wendigo, two classic cosmic horror stories. And Algernon actually has a place in the best cosmic horror authors video that we put out last year. But he's written a lot of different stories, some of them classic ghost stories. And there's some really, there's some really spooky stuff in some of these stories. Now, because Algernon Blackwood, he's a contemporary of H.P. Lovecraft, and so a lot of his works are written in the early 20th century. And so you can kind of say he helped establish some of the tropes that are commonly used today. So if you going back and reading some of the stories, you might think, well, this isn't really new to me. But remember, these were some of the first, he was one of the first guys to write some of this stuff. These are short stories in a larger anthology. So these aren't books per se themselves, but they're definitely worth your time, especially if you can find them online, for free, or check them out at your local library. But my favorites of his ghost stories that I've read so far, he's got one called The Empty House, which is a haunted house type story. There is a renowned kind of a house where a murder took place, and the main characters, a nephew and his aunt, are enticed to go and check out this supposedly haunted house, and there they get exposed to the lingering evil or anger that's associated with the murders that happen. And it's just really neat to see it come out. To think that this was published so long ago, again in the early 20th century. But one of my favorite stories of his, and it's one of his best known ghost stories, is one called The Occupant of the Room. It's 8 pages long, but it does such a job from, I think, immediately of capturing your attention. See, the main character, he's like a headmaster for a school. He's on vacation, and he's immediately, and the vulnerability of this character is set up not by some kind of psychological trauma or something like that, but he has just traveled to the Alps on a vacation, and he was just kind of a spur of the moment thing. And he's traveled, he's exhausted, but he's excited, ready to experience the mountains. And then he finds out that he has no room, that he didn't bother to reserve the room. Right, this is late early 20th century. They didn't have the internet, and so he gets to this to a hotel that he was planning on staying in, and it is packed, and there's like nothing available and he doesn't speak the language, and so he is just kind of distraught because he's like, where am I going to get to stay? But then the owner of the hotel, who doesn't speak very good English, and is communicating through a porter who only halfway speaks English, lets him know that yes, we do have another room. However, there's a catch to it. You see, someone else is already renting it. The thing is they've vanished, and we're not sure if they're still okay. They could show up anytime, but they went on this really dangerous mountain climbing expedition, and we haven't heard anything from her since. And so it sets up this weird tension where he's just relieved to have a room, but he takes it knowing full well that the person who is supposed to be there may not even be alive. And so that tension is established in such a creative way. So it's a great story. Algernon Blackwood, like I said, The Willows and The Wendigo are both classic in the cosmic horror subgenre, but he's really good at setting up the tension and the mystery of a good ghost story. Next is one that I covered a couple of months ago. It's another collection, but it's by Stephen King, You Like It Darker, which was published in 2024. Now, this anthology of short stories and novellas has just a lot of fantastic stories in it, but only one true ghost story. It's got Stephen King dabbles in cosmic horror. He dabbles in mysterious dreams and any number of different things. And I think of that book, there are only like 2 stories I wasn't entertained by, but a number of them that I was just, and it become some of my favorite Stephen King stories ever. Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream, another one called The Dreamers, which is the cosmic horror story, and The Answer Man, which is just this fantastic, I can't even explain that one. But so the whole book, I think, is worth your time. In this book, there's a novella called Rattlesnakes. And Rattlesnakes, believe it or not, is a sequel to Cujo. I don't know if you remember in Cujo, and I read Cujo decades ago. So the book itself, I'm a little sketchy on it. I remember more of the movie than the book. But in Cujo, the mother, there's a mother and a son who are terrorized by the dog. But while they're being terrorized, there's a scene in the book where the father has this mysterious occurrence happen where he hears his son coming from like the closet in his bedroom. He doesn't know yet what's going on with his wife and his son being terrorized by the dog. But it's like one of the only supernatural events in the book. Well, this book, Rattlesnakes, takes place where the father has moved down or is taking a vacation in Florida. He was having this supernatural occurrence on this little retirement area of Florida. As I recall, it's like on an island or an isthmus, I forget which, that has been populated by retirees and what have you. And it's incredibly well done. The story involves, it actually brings in his experiences from losing his son and then ultimately getting divorced from his wife. And somehow manages to leverage it into a full-fledged ghost story. Now, I really enjoyed this novella, and it had some. I thought they were scary. Now, there are some parts to it that I'd be willing to bet some people won't be as creeped out as I was about it. I don't know. Maybe I was just in the mood. So if you've read Rattlesnakes, let me know if you thought. No spoilers in the comments, please. But let me know what you thought. If you thought it was as good as I did, but I really enjoyed it. But just that should be the hook right there. A sequel to Cujo that's a ghost story. So Cujo's not the ghost. So be clear about that. But it's really a neat story, and I think definitely a standout ghost story from the master of the macabre. Next up is a book I can't stop talking about, The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. And this book, I think you can argue, is part ghost story and part cosmic horror as well. The ghosts in this are not your typical ghosts. And I don't want to go too far into it because I don't really want to spoil what's going on here. But the main character, there's 5 characters. They're friends. They grew up together. They're all Indians, and a number of years before the story takes place, they all engage in an act of extreme violence while out hunting. They find themselves in a situation to where they're able to shoot a number of elk in the wintertime in a place that they shouldn't have been. And this slaughter triggers a series of events that the ghosts that are haunting them are are uh, are unlike anything I've ever read before. Friends that you're getting told the story of each of the friends in here, and let's just say you get attached to them, and then you end up getting very much shocked at the resolution of each of their stories. It's a good book. It's got a lot of good, creepy, ghostly moments. So Stephen Graham Jones has become a quick favorite of mine. I just picked up a copy of his Buffalo Hunter, and I'm getting ready to start reading that so I could have that one read in time for Halloween. So for The Only Good Indians, published in 2020, it won the Bram Stoker Book Award for that year. So this is a really good book. I keep recommending it to whoever I can. So definitely worth your time. A great ghost story. Or if you're more into cosmic horror, I think it checks that box off as well. I'm not going to explain anymore because I don't want to ruin it. And finally, is a book I read a couple of years ago. It was my first Joe Hill novel, Heart-Shaped Box. Now, Joe Hill, I'm sure everyone knows at this point, Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King. He's written a number of books. He was on a hiatus for years. And later in October of this year, his first book, and I want to say 10 years, is coming out. And that's called King Sorrow. And it sounds really, really interesting. And I'm hoping to get my hands on it and to read it before the end of October, but I don't know because I'm kind of a slow reader. And this is supposed to be like over 1,000 pages. But anyway, Joe Hill has definitely inherited his father's gift for telling a good spooky story. In Heart-Shaped Box, the plot is just, I think it just grabbed me. There's a he's like a retired musician, and he has a strange hobby. He likes to collect morbid memorabilia. So he owns, like, say, the chess set of Aleister Crowley, the founder of the Satanic Church. He's got a snuff film that he purchased. He's got a confession letter from a witch from the Middle Ages. So he basically, anytime he gets wind of something that's an oddity, that's twisted or dark, he'll buy it. His personal assistant came across an ad that's essentially selling the suit of someone's dead grandfather. And the suit, according to the ad, says, "I have to tell you that this suit, my grandfather is buried in it. My grandfather died in it, and his spirit is basically following it around. So when you're buying the suit, you're buying his ghost." And right away, the main character, Jude, snaps it up and he has to have it. And it turns out it's a really bad idea. The ghost does come with the suit, but it opens the door to a series of events that turns out that perhaps this wasn't just an accident. The story is very much a spooky story. The revelations as they come out, Joe Hill does a masterful job of carrying the mystery and the mystique of the ghost story throughout. I will say that the end of it kind of disappointed me a little bit. Not because he was necessarily bad, but as I felt that the ending was a little rushed. Like maybe he wasn't sure how to end it because it rides high most of the time, and then the ending I felt just kind of came suddenly. But I don't want that to dissuade you. If you're looking for a good ghost story, this is a good one. And frankly, I think it's hard to stick the landing in a good ghost story. I think even Stephen King has problems with that with a lot of his books too. But I highly recommend Heart-Shaped Box. It was a lot of fun to read. It's my first introduction to Joe Hill's work. And I'm really looking forward to King Sorrow when it comes out here in a couple of months. So that's it, guys. 5 of some of the best ghost stories I've read. I'd love to know, what are your favorite ghost stories? What did I miss? What would you recommend folks read, especially as Halloween starts creeping up on us over the next couple of months? So thanks so much for your time, guys. Like and subscribe if you haven't done already. Really appreciate it. We hit 600 subscribers, so I'm super excited about that. Thank you, everybody that have followed us, that's liked, that's shared. Love having this community to talk books. Have a great day and keep on reading.